Ladies and gentlemen, and undecided, good evening. This is all a little bit strange, but an absolute delight to be taking part in the big club dinner. And I hope that a bunch of you managed to get together, maybe in a virtual bar. You've got a drink in front of you and trying to recreate the atmosphere of a club dinner. It's been strange times, hasn't it? And this is a little bit odd, as I'm sure all the speakers have said tonight, because normally, as you would expect, I speak to an audience of adoring hundreds, laughing their socks off. I'm on my Todd in here. Even the dog's disappeared. But hopefully we'll have a few laughs. It's been such a strange time, hasn't it? The whole lockdown scenario. I don't know, the last time I worked, the last time I was on a plane was back in January, coming back from a tournament in the Middle East. It's the longest I've been at home for about 30 years, and I'm sure most of us are in the same position. And of course, it creates a few problems at home, doesn't it? The missus and I have had our ups and downs. Within the first few weeks of lockdown, she was Googling divorce lawyers. Just a couple of weeks after that, she was Googling hitmen. But we managed to get through it all right, and it is a bit strange. And of course, some of you might well be surprised to see me anyway, because a lot of people that I bump into say, Dougie Donnelly, I thought you died or retired. We're working for the BBC Scotland channel, which is the same thing, really, I suppose, when you think about it. But happily, no, I'm still alive and kicking and looking forward to getting back to what is now my day job, commentating on the European tour. It's also been very strange during this lockdown because we've all been drinking too much, really, haven't we? I mean, there's no doubt about that. I had to see my doctor, and he told me that I really was going to have to stop drinking so much, which was a bit of a shock. That's going to be a big change for me, because he's been my doctor for about 20 years or so. Anyway, what a lucky guy I am. I came dangerously close to getting a real job. I studied law at university. Think about that. I could have been a lawyer. I could have been retired about 5 years by now, playing golf and getting fat. But things took a slightly different turn. I started DJing, and very soon after that, got very lucky and joined Radio Clyde, excuse me, and ended up doing the morning show on Radio Clyde. And not too long after that, got the chance to join the BBC Scotland sports team in Glasgow. And that was enormously fortunate because it was a time when the BBC had everything. I mean, we really had all the sport that was worth having. And as a mad keen sports fan, I took on everything that was offered. If they said, do you know anything about curling? I would probably say, not very much, but give me a week. Do you know anything about indoor bowls? Nah, not very much. Give me a week. All of which led me to all sorts of things, including 7 Olympic Games. And sometimes I look back at that, I think, how lucky were you to get to 7 Olympics? And what a golden era it was for Scottish sport when you think about it. At that time, even just to take football, we qualified for 5 World Cups in a row. Think about that. The last one we qualified for was back in '98. It's 22 years, and will be more than that next time we do it, if and when we do it. So 5 World Cups. The new firm were emerging. Dundee United reached a European final. Aberdeen won one. The old firm, of course, were still around. Alan Wells won an Olympic gold medal. Stephen Hendry dominated the world snooker. Paul Laurie won the Open. Sam Torrance, Colin Montgomery. And right up there amongst my absolute favourite memories of all the sport I've had the chance to work on, 2 Scottish Grand Slams, which we all remember, of course. I was so fortunate both in 1984 and 1990 to be sitting alongside a great hero and a great friend, the late Bill McLaren. I sat beside Bill in Dublin when we won the Triple Crown, and then back at Murrayfield when Jim Calder's try gave us the Grand Slam against France. And then, of course, just 6 years later, the epic Grand Slam of 1990, which all came down, as you all remember, to that winner-take-all decider against England at Murrayfield. And at that time, I was doing a kind of Friday night preview programme, Friday Sports Scene, which we did live from Goldenacre. Sorry, the voice is... I've not been used to doing this for a long time. So we did this preview show from Goldenacre on the Friday night, live in front of a bunch of the Heriot's members. And we had John Beattie in there as a guest. We had, who else was a guest in that one? Andy Irvine was certainly a guest. And we had Bill Beaumont and Steve Smith. So it was all, previewing the game tomorrow, which was good fun, actually. And all the boys agreed that win or lose, they would all be back on the Saturday night to do Saturday night sports scene after the match to talk about how it had all gone. Needless to say, we were all celebrating. No sign of either Beaumont or Smith. They didn't appear at all. Now, I'd spoken to a few of the players after the game, and I said, look, we've got this live show from Golden Acre. I know you're out in Edinburgh tonight. You'll be having a few drinks. You'll be celebrating. But if you do get a chance, drop in. It'd be great to see you. So they said, yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. So anyway, halfway through the programme, and I'm sitting with John Beattie and Andy Irvine, and I can't remember who else was there, a whole bunch of us, replaying the highlights, having a great night. And then suddenly there was a terrific commotion at the back of the room. And unbelievably, 4 or 5 of the guys had made it to Golden Acre. In walked JJ, Chick Chalmers, Finn Calder, Derek White. They all came up to the front. We were sitting. Sound guys were running about, crazily trying to put microphones on them. It was just an unforgettable night. I ended up, I seem to remember, with one of the very respectable Heriot's members pouring a pint over my head as I was wishing everyone goodbye from Golden Acre. So that was very, very special indeed. And some of you might even have been at Golden Acre that night who are at our big club dinner tonight. But of course, that afternoon also gave me something which is still probably one of my worst moments in television. Because, sorry, it wasn't that afternoon. What am I talking about? 4 years later, one of the worst moments I've ever had. And people are always asking, you've done all these things, you've done all these sports. What's the worst thing that's ever happened? And it's only television. I mean, it's not brain surgery. It's not nuclear physics. It's only television. When things go horribly wrong, it's not really that big a deal. And I think most of us have tried to maintain that attitude, even though producers might be screaming in your ear. But there was a moment in the 94 Calcutta Cup match at Murrayfield. Again, Scotland against England. And it was a season when we'd struggled. England had been dominant. They had that huge pack and they played very boring rugby, but very effective rugby. And through the game, for once, we just rose to the occasion. And again, you may well remember, with literally 2 minutes to go, we were leading 14-12. On the brink of a famous victory. Murrayfield was going absolutely potty. And then England were given a penalty, which was never, ever a fucking penalty. But the referee gave it. Jonathan Callard stepped up, stuck it between the posts, and from leading 14-12, suddenly we'd lost it, 15-14. You can imagine the atmosphere that afternoon. It was awful. Everybody trudged off the pitch, and my job that day was to do the after-match interviews. So I'm in the old dressing room corridor at Murrayfield, 2 chairs facing each other. I'm in one, the player sits in the other, cameraman behind my shoulder looking at the player. And the first interview is the Scotland captain that day, Gavin Hastings. So Gavin comes in and he's not happy. None of us are happy. So he sits down in the chair. And usually in that situation, and Gavin had been a friend for a long time, you have a little bit of banter, a little bit of a chat before you go live. The big man has got nothing to say. He's completely down. I'm not feeling all that much better. So we sit looking at each other for maybe 30 seconds. It seems forever. Excuse me. And then I get the voice in the ear to begin the interview. So I asked Big Gav the obvious first question about the awful way in which the game has been lost with actually the last kick of the ball. And the big man starts to answer it. I'm sure many of you remember this incident. The emotion just suddenly gets to him. It shows how much playing for Scotland means to these guys. Suddenly, he's crying. There's tears beginning to run down his cheeks. And I always remember little things that everything slows down in moments of crisis, don't they? I've always remembered there's a tear drops off the end of his chin onto the blue Scotland jersey. That sticks in my mind for some strange reason. But he's gone. He's absolutely gone. He's now sitting like that, wiping the eyes. The emotion has completely got to him because we had lost. So now I've got a little bit of a problem because I have to ask him another question. And the reason I have to ask him another question is because it's a kind of golden rule in our game that the interviewer never decides when the interview is over. The producer decides that because he may need you to fill a certain amount of time. They may have nowhere else to go. He needs you to keep talking. So I'm thinking, be the professional. I've got to try and ask Gavin another question here. But he's completely gone. And I promise you, for that 10 or 15 seconds, when I'm thinking, I've got to keep going. I can't ask him another question. He's gone. And that, honestly, on live television, live in the grandstand, excuse me, was still one of the worst things that's ever happened to me. So anyway, I decide what I'll do. I'll ask him a really long second question, give him a chance to get his composure back. An Archie McPherson question, a really long question. So I try it, but he's gone. The big man can't talk. So I then take the decision, what the hell, I'm not putting them through anymore. They can sort out what they're doing back in the gallery. So I wind it up and I say, Gav, I think every Scot appreciates how you feel. Maybe we'll speak to you later. And that's fine, and it's all wound up. And the only reason that nobody's said anything in my ear is because they're all as shocked as the audience watching at home. A huge audience in grandstand, obviously. So that was an awful, awful moment. I'm sure you can appreciate how I felt at the time, never mind how Gav felt. Anyway, it's all over the papers on the Sunday morning, isn't it? Scottish captain breaks down after Calcutta Cup defeat. So it's big news. I went off, I remember, to do snooker at the Wembley Conference Centre. So on about the Monday or the Tuesday, I get a phone call from Gav. And I said, how are you, big man? You all right? He said, oh, I'm fine. I'm really sorry about Saturday. I said, oh, listen, don't apologise. We all know exactly how you felt. He said, no, it was, he said it was awful. But the great thing was, this is before email, before mobiles even. That's how long ago it was, 94. I've had so many letters since Saturday, all sympathetic, all understanding, not a word of criticism. And I said, well, that doesn't surprise me. He said, no, but the best letter I got was from your missus, from Linda. I said, what, you got a letter from Linda? Yeah, I got a letter from Linda. I said, what did it say? He said, dear Gav, sorry I made you burst into tears. Now you know how I feel. True story. That's exactly what happened back in 1994. Now, as I say, all that I'm doing is golf. I left the BBC finally after 32 years, 10 years ago, believe it or not. I now travel the world talking about the European tour, which is a lot of fun with a lot of guys that I really enjoy working with. And as we all know, being with your mates is so important, and that's become more and more obvious over the last few awful months. So working with guys like Sam Torrance and Ken Brown and Tony Johnson and people like that, it's just an absolute joy for me. And we have a lot of laughs doing it. Ken in particular, you know that famous laugh at Ken Brown's. And we're always looking for a little bit of humour to come in from somewhere. And I remember one in particular, we're doing an opening at the old course before, I don't think it was an open, it was maybe a Dunhill Links. And we're doing it on the 17th tee in the old course, with the old course hotel in the background. So I'm with Ken, I'm saying, welcome to today's programme, round 3 of the Dunhill Links, whatever it is. And let's just talk about the 17th hole here, the famous Rhodes hole, Ken. The first decision you've got to make is what line do you take off the tee, because you've got to go over the corner of the hotel, the old railway sheds. And on the sheds, it says Old Course Hotel and Spa, I think it says. And the argument is always, which letter do you aim over? Do you go the D in old or the U in course? What's your line? So I said to Ken, what line do you normally go for? He said, I always go for the F in hotel. And I said, there's no F in hotel. He said, yeah, there is. What do you think that big building behind us is? It was recorded, sadly. It never actually went out, but a typical Ken Brown line. I also had one, which I've got to tell you about, last year, one of my biggest bloopers, cock-ups. Now, there have been many, but one in particular I remember with, I suppose a lot of affection, really. And it happened in China, in Shanghai, at the WGC HSBC Champions. And Tony Finau, the American, who had just played his first Ryder Cup match, becoming a bit of a superstar. He's in the top 20 in the world. He's having a good week. And I'm in commentary along with Frank Nobilo and my great mate from Hong Kong, Don Boulay. We're the commentary team that week. And I decided that I've really got to talk about Tony Finau, obviously. So I start off this story, and it's actually genuinely quite an interesting story, because Tony Finau is not your classic American country club golfer with a silver spoon in the mouth who, goes to college and builds his career that way. Tony was from a very humble background. His old man was a luggage handler at Salt Lake City Airport. So there was no golfing background at all. Quite a big family. I think Tony was one of 5 or 6. But he and his little brother always used to go down to the end of the road near their house in Salt Lake City, where there was a little par 3 course, and they would look through the fence. They never played golf; they just watched through the par 3 through the fence at the boys playing the par 3 course. But they were clearly interested. So the dad, as dads do, decides that, well, he's got to encourage this interest in golf. He can't afford to get them a membership or buy them clubs, really, but he manages to find a few old clubs. They manage to find a few old balls. And what he does is he gets an old mattress and he hangs it from the rafters in the basement of the family house. So there's this mattress hanging from the rafters, and they got a bit of carpet on the floor. And Tony and his young brother hit balls into the mattress. That's how they started playing golf. He went on to become a multimillionaire, winner in the PGA Tour, and a Ryder Cup player. It's a great story. But in telling this story, I'm saying what a great story this is. And to this day, Tony Finau still finds it a very evocative sound. That sound of his balls hitting the mattress. I can tell you that neither Nobilo nor Boulay spoke for about the next 5 minutes. It was just one of those moments. I was quite pleased about it. Anyway, it's been fantastic being part of the Big Club dinner tonight. Well done to the guys on the podcast for the initiative. I think we all know how important sport has been, how our mates have been during the last few months. I must admit, I've found, I'm sure many of you have as well, that almost the hardest part of the week was Saturday morning, when you woke up and you realised there was no live sport to look forward to over the weekend. Thankfully, it is beginning to come back a little bit. And the key thing, of course, is we all have to support our local club. You know how important your local club is, how much you've missed being able to go down and have a few beers and watch a game or play or whatever it is you do. So by being part of this tonight, hopefully you are supporting your local club. Continue to support them, and hopefully in the weeks and months to come, we'll get back to what we always used to enjoy so much. So please, wherever you are, wherever you're watching, ladies, gentlemen, raise your glasses and let's toast our clubs. To the clubs.
That's fantastic, Dougie. Thank you very much for that.
All right, Cammy, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, yeah.
Sorry about the voice, but genuinely, I've hardly been speaking for the last few months. So.
No,